question is, we would definitely want to understand before we even get into other things. So when, and a CSR is making like a decision in terms of what are the kind of projects or what kind of nonprofits to support, what are some of the key factors that play a major role? Also, maybe if you could touch upon a little bit in terms of what are some of the challenges that you face, like most deviations in terms of, so if you have like from the crowd, like, what are the things that you struggle with? And maybe this is a good platform because a lot of nonprofits are there. So if you could talk about that and they could maybe focus a little bit more on that. So maybe Pratima, over to you, and then we'll move to Purnima.
Thank you, Namrata. Welcome to everyone. And thank you especially to India Partner Network for giving me the opportunity to speak on this particular topic. In terms of what are the primary factors that influence the decision making, I think the most important factor is the CSR policy that we create as an organization, as a company. If you're an Indian organization based and listed in India, then you're governed by the India CSR Act. And within that CSR Act, there is a need to have a policy in place. The Act clearly defines everything in terms of how CSR needs to be structured for an organization. It may be slightly different for an organization that's multinational, because there is a balancing act that one needs to do between the global policies that are there versus what is there in India. And I'm narrating this from my experience with Standard Chartered, which was a UK-based organization. So there were policies and there were strategic giving that was related to the European market versus what was actually being put together for CSR in India. Today, I work for an organization that is both relevant to the North American market as well as China. And then I have to balance out my CSR portfolio, keeping in mind the policies that exist in those parental markets, as well as what is needed within the local legislations, that is the India CSR Act. So to kind of filter it down, Lenovo's focus is on empowering underrepresented communities with access to technology and STEM education. So a large part of our portfolio, therefore, would be around STEM education. What NGOs would probably need to look at, or maybe what organizations, I'll talk from a corporate perspective first, and then maybe move towards the other side of the fence. And Namrata, you can bring me back to space if I deviate from what you are actually asking for, or I seem to be going off track. But I think when I'm looking at CSR projects to build annual action plan for any fiscal year, the focus is more on saying what are the geographical locations, where does the project actually fit within the CSR policy that has been defined, and what could be the business and alignment to those projects and those locations that we are looking at. That's largely the broad view that I can give. In terms of deviations, many a times organizations are doing great. The proof of concepts and the concepts will be awesome, but they may sometimes not fit either into the strategy that has been built around the CSR policy. Maybe the geographical locations don't suit the organization. Or it's really not the focus area that we are working in. An example is there are many times I would have organizations call me up and say, you're in the space of education, I need to do up a school. And unfortunately, my CSR policy does not work in the area of brick and mortar infrastructure. We believe in tech infrastructure. So then I have to kind of either regret it, or if the project is really great, then see how we can bring that element in. I think those are the things that really kind of I look for when we are looking for CSR projects and the deviation.
Thanks, Pratima. So I think some really important points that, Pratima has highlighted in terms of how every nonprofit should sort of take care of how their there's strategic alignment between the proposal and the CSR policy of the organization. So definitely, I think one major learning is, get very well acquainted with the CSR law as well as the CSR policy of the particular organization that you're interested in partnering with, because it'll give you a very good insight into their geography, thematic alignment, etc. So maybe Purnima, from you, because I think you bring a very strong people lens as well. Also from maybe an employee engagement or maybe some other strategic imperatives of your organization. So I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, thank you, Meenu. I'll just add on to what Pratima said. I think first is the thematic area, rightly said. The second is the due diligence that the organization would be able to, stick on to as the government has made the law. They've also made the laws to let us know who can be a part of the partner, to who can be a partner. So there's a lot of due diligence that happens, and any NGO which aligns with the thematic area next has to be compiling with all the compliance related requirements of the government, of the organization. For example, I think listed companies will have to a extra level of compliance. So that's one thing. The third is, I would say, for alignment, these two are aligned. The third is expectations of the corporate in terms of able to, show, track, impact assessment. So that's also something as a corporate we do look into. While we can have a couple of partners or portfolios where we are not looking into impacts, but with the government having so many regulations, with our internal auditors having so many of criteria, it becomes imperative for a corporate having the essence of social responsibility, but also ensure that we tend to ask a lot of information, tracking, data, details from the partner. With that's something the partner has to scale up to. All this underlying is the pure purpose of good work that happens in the partnership.
Great. Thanks, Purnima, for bringing in that angle. I think very rightly pointed out, because over the years, I think CSR has also taken that, that journey that has happened for CSR, where we've moved more from just a charity approach to a very structured, impact-focused narrative, and how that sort of builds in with the brand narrative of the particular organization. And definitely, every corporate, wants their programs to be compliant with the law. So definitely would urge all the NGOs to make a note of this. Please keep your compliances, all the documents, be very aware of what are the mandatory requirements, and definitely try to strengthen. And I think related to that maybe is my next question. I think we spoke about impact, we spoke about compliance, and we touched upon it, but maybe we can go deeper. And I just wanted to understand. So, when an NGO is, say, coming up with a proposal. And I think, Pratima, you'd also mentioned how, you've seen some really strong models. However, they're not able to make the cut because of ABC reason. Of course, they've not strategically aligned, but also in terms of bringing out the impact, like how do they really depict their model in the best possible way that the impact becomes clear. We are very clear of, what is the output, how are they really planning that program, and the model becomes clear. What are the elements to be kind of taken care of while planning the budget, and the different activities, short term, long term, what should the goals look like, so that it's easier for corporates to support those programs.
So, Namrata, I think one of the things that is important for me is I don't believe that a project or a program can take place in just one meeting. In the first meeting itself, it's all about discussing the concept, discussing what it does in the community, and then you do a deeper dive into it. So my focus generally when I talk to organizations or implementing partners is to first understand what their concept is. I would never ask for a proposal beforehand, because unless I understand what the inputs are going to be, what the outputs are going to be, and what's going to be the long term outcome, there's no point in getting someone to prepare a proposal and share it with me. Because if I don't understand the project, and if I don't understand the concept that the project is bringing to the table, I'm never going to be able to convince my CSR board. So it's important for that thing to happen. So it's never in the first go that I would request for a proposal. It's always about understanding the concept. And even there, if I feel there are gray areas, I would go back to the partner and say, work out a concept note and share it with me, and I will come back to you. So that's one of the things that I focus on. The other thing is, there have been many times I've heard NGOs say there's a lot of documentation to be done. And I laugh about it because if you look at the CSR Act today, there's equal amount of documentation and reporting that corporates have to do under the CSR Act. So the pressure and the challenge is on the both sides of the fence. Even as I'm speaking to you today, I'm still trying to come, and you know it, Namrata, we're trying to complete the CSR compliances and reporting that needs to be done to the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. So the dominoes effect is felt because the structure of the act is such that when the implementing partner shares the documentation and the compliances and falls in line, that's when your donor corporate is able to take that back to the Ministry of Corporate Affairs and to the government and say that both of us, which is the donor company as well as the implementing partner, is able to support community development and growth, right? In terms of what else do I look in the proposal? So if I was at the proposal stage, I would rather that you tell me about the proposal. Don't tell me about you as an organization. I can find out about you on the website. What bothers me the most is when an 8-page proposal comes to me and 3 pages of it is about the organization. Don't do that. Stick to the point. Organizations, companies have very lean CSR teams. Absolutely lean CSR teams. We do not have large teams with us. Therefore, we don't have that much management time to go through what you may be looking as a selling point for us. Focus on the project where you want the funding. Talk to us about what it is doing for you in the community. If I have to know about your organization and your founders and what you are doing in other states, I will ask you for it, or I'll go to your website and take a look at it. Important is for you to share with us what your project is doing and how that impact is coming out. More importantly, the monitoring and evaluation. Many corporates don't have M&Es in place. They rely on the implementing partners to share what the M&Es are like. You are the subject matters in M&E. Why don't you share what you have put together? Why do you need the corporate donor to come to you and say, this is how I want my M&E to be? And if there is a corporate donor who comes to you and says, this is how I expect the M&E to be in, don't go, ha. There could be a way of saying, how do I complement what I have on my table and what my donor is asking me for? Meet midway. These challenges will always be there. There could be organizations that have great M&E systems. There could be organizations that don't have great M&E systems. So you have to, when you are pitching for your fundraising, you have to also do a little bit of your study of your own to say, who's the organization you're reaching out to? How great are they in terms of their own CSR, M&E, and how much of an impact are they doing? For example, our organization, when I meet implementing partners, I always tell them, small budget, big impact. I've made that expectation right up there on the table. But that doesn't mean I'm closing the door if you come to me with a big budget and say the impact is small. I'm willing to hear you, but you have to also listen to what I have to say, because those are my level playing fields within which I have to develop and curate a program that will fit into my CSR annual action plan.
Thanks, Pratima. I think some very important points that you've touched upon. Of course, one is of that co-creation and having that dialogue with the corporate and understanding exactly what their requirement is. And I think Pratima, very rightly pointed out that, if your model actually has strength, The rest of the things can still be discussed. Of course, we need to be strong in compliance. And I think another really important thing that you touched upon is, sometimes NGOs, while they might have good models, and you said, we can do the due diligence, don't have websites which are updated, right? So it's important to have the disclosures, because, I mean, nowadays, especially when corporates are partnering, how well you're positioned is also important. So definitely, I think it's important, even if it's a basic website, disclosures, basic disclosures in terms of compliance. If it's listed on your website, it's definitely very, very helpful and open to co-creation. I think Purnima would love to also hear your thoughts in terms of what are the things that you look for in a proposal when you're selecting a potential partner, and uh, how can NGOs better represent their work in a proposal?
Okay. I'm always adding on to Pratima, so thank you for making her going first. So from my standpoint, I look into how aligned. So I would say every corporate ends up going and giving their point of view, their expectation, and then the NGO starts working towards it, and then there is no sustenance. So I would say I'll rather not disrupt what they're actually doing and look at alignment of how much the NGO has with what we are expecting. So the thematic area alignment, all that is there, but under it, how much they are actually close to what we are expecting. Because it's like an office design. You keep giving your design inputs, they keep changing theirs, then somewhere they lose their own essence. So I think I would really want the partner to be true to what they're doing. If they're doing something which is not aligned to me, I step back. So rather look at their alignment to us, not make them align to what we want. That's the first thing, I think, and that's a strong learning that I've got over the years. The second, that important things other than whatever was told about due diligence and the thematic area and all of that is the passion with which the organization, from the founder to the person with whom I am going to be connected, has. For me, that's very important because I think that drives the engagement. We have very broad idea, but how it can be made, what could be the problems, only a person who's passionate about the project, about the initiative, can drive it. And someone who looks beyond that is what, or a partner who looks beyond that is what we look into it. The other underlying integrity, transparency, reporting, all that is table stakes. But over and above that, I do have a percentage of selection criteria on these 2 points.
Thanks, Purnima. I think very rightly pointed out again that, it's important. And I think it takes me back to the CSR policy point that we started with, that I think organizations really need to go and find the donor that aligns with the kind of work and the model that they are trying to build. And I think that's when, and that also takes me to my next question. And maybe I'll start with Purnima this time. So, I think the next, that was my next question actually, where I wanted to understand. So, once you start supporting an NGO, of course, there is a project focused approach where, the project could be, say, 1 year to 3 years, etc. But what are some of those elements of partnership, of understanding, of alignment, which can help build a more long-lasting relationship with a donor? So what are those things that a nonprofit should keep in mind to ensure that, once they have sort of got into a partnership with a corporate, it continues year on year? So what can they keep doing? How can they sort of, keep reporting or engaging with you, such that the relationship actually goes on for many years?
Okay. No offense. Thank you for having me talk on this, but I'm open for Pratima to also speak on this. Going first, if you want, Pratima, is it okay?
Okay. For you, so Purnima, thank you.
Okay, fine. So, if what, see, I think corporates also are in the right spirits, wanting the partner to be for a longer duration, because it's only then it helps both of them, be the partner or the corporate. We don't want to change, though it's perceived that way. It's a long-term relationship which helps both of them. Having said this, as I told earlier, the passion, the inputs that the donor gives would be very important for sustaining the relationship. Second, I touched upon this transparency. Bring out the things that are not going okay first. It's fine. I always think it's always better to say what's not happening and try to figure it out, and appraise the corporate early on. For instance, you've not been able to make an investment, something which was in the pipeline, you have not. So go openly and say this is where it is, because we also have the uh, hammer on us to ensure the utilization happens within the year. We cannot postpone it. So tell us early on. We will try to see how we can work it out to make things better. Surprises, late surprises is something which totally, I would say, wipes off the confidence or the trust that a corporate has, because at the end of the day, we should also see a corporate. If I'm holding the CSR portfolio, I'm also having someone above me whom I have to report. I have the auditors whom I have to answer to. So it sometimes it's a very thin line where you start feeling if we are really putting too many contours to the partner, but we are hand tied on it. So I would say transparency, lot of communication. Bad things first, also appraises of the good thing. And third, the way in which the project is managed. That's very important. All these things would know help us, even if things have not gone right. Okay, I can still use this. I have scope for them to improve. They are taking up inputs and we are giving inputs. All that collaborative workspace is what we are looking at. I'll leave it out to Pratima to add if I've.
Thanks, Purnima, and I kind of agree with you. And I'll go back to the point that you said earlier. I think if you want to build a lasting relationship with the donor, post the first year, it's always helpful to have founders of the organization come and meet up with the leadership, because that's the comfort level that you create, right? Also, there has to be a hunger in the implementing partner as well. Don't get complacent and say that, oh, I want X amount of funding year on year and I will do Y amount of impact. How is there scope for you to, one, scale it up, leverage it? When you start having a relationship with the donor, also think a little like the donor, and build it around that. I have had, I can talk about one of my partners, which is where we started working with this organization for a flood relief, where we were looking at simply just providing them with tablets when there was a flood, and because the teachers did not have textbooks. And then the founder reached out to us and said, there is more that your organization can do, and took us through the concept. This was 7 years ago. 5 years ago, we actually inked a partnership with them where we started a teacher capacity building program in the Northeast, not our geographical area, but the founder was able to convince us the reason why we needed to put our funding in that space. And then thereafter, we have expanded the program to Karnataka and Maharashtra. So today with this partner, we are doing about 970 plus schools. It started off simply by an ad hoc disaster response that came in, but it was the hunger and the passion of the founder to keep knocking on our doors and trying to convince us that there is a need to do this. And at every step, the organization kind of worked with us to build that teacher capacity building program. I think that's what actually helps build long-term relationships. Another example that I can give you is I had to reach out to this organization and say I wanted to design and curate a specific program because that was the need of the hour for us. And the founder of that organization was open enough to say, I may try to do this, but I don't know how successful it will be. So the first year is going to be a pilot. And then we said, that's fine, we'll try it out. The learnings and the unlearnings will come from there. So I think it's passion, the hunger, the desire to grow, the desire to scale. And like Purnima said, the communication and transparency. I've also had partners who, would have started the program in good faith, and somewhere during their audits or their documentation, their certifications may have got stuck, their tax exemption certificates may have got stuck, and they have immediately come to us and said, there is a risk here, we're not able to take it because we'll not be able to give you this. Then the donor company can sit across with the implementing partner and look for solutions to mitigate that risk and see how we can help. Like Purnima said, ultimately we are the ones who are only um, curating, designing, and putting everything on paper. We ultimately report to the CSR board, and the CSR board ultimately reports to the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. That's how it is. We are legislated. Our business relies on the fact that we need to do our CSR obligation as per the law of the land. That's why corporates are the way they are in terms of asking for information, not because we want to feel that we are benevolent or being touchy about these things. That's not what it is all about. I'll stop here, Namrata.
No, thank you so much for these insights. I think very helpful for the NGOs also to understand, to have that hunger, to have that shared passion, and alongside also to understand that, I think the documentation part that we've been talking about, the transparency part that we've been talking about. And, I think this is a very important, thing to point out that, whenever, so I think all corporates, and I've worked with, different corporates, and I've engaged with different corporates in different capacities, have set up various systems, and I think NGOs need to take those uh, forums more seriously. There is a monthly reporting. There are calls happening every month with the partners. Most of them do have like a quarterly catch up. They're sending reports, but I don't think sometimes, I feel like maybe NGOs don't understand what is the larger objective, and therefore they are unable to, like, I think Purnima, you were talking about transparency, and even if there is a challenge, we understand that there will be challenges on ground, and we are happy to sort of listen to you and solve it. But if the corporate doesn't know, then how do we sort of, and last minute something comes up, that's when it becomes a problem area. So like, use these forums and into the best, and make take best advantage of these and solve those problems at that point. And maybe I don't know, Pratima, Purnima, open to both of you, if you want to talk a little bit about any such partnership forums, like, so when you onboard a partner, to kind of create a convergence between partners, what are some of the things that you've done in your past which have worked, or maybe not even worked? So if there are any insights from many partnership forums, whether it is a monthly call, whether it is a partnership convergence meet, would love to hear from both of you, as in whichever order.
Okay. I'll be happy to go first. Something which is of high interest for me, because the question that you ask would potentially enrich the NGO partner with whom we are working. Couple of things that we have tested is consciously, if we are, for example, we will have a flagship. It's a mega initiative. Okay, whatever it is, we try to see if we are having other partner or organizations with whom we are working for a different initiative, to ensure that they are also a part of our flagship initiative. So, for example, if my organization is having a relationship with partner A for for maybe after school education or during school education in 5 schools, which is within the within the geographical area where I want, and I'm running a football league. So we try to see if I can take in students from that organization, from that school, to be put into the football league. And we also have a lot of inputs from the partner who's already working. Or if I am working with a school for an after school program, and that's an NGO partner, I see if I can use my football league there, have children from there. So that way, I think it helps in scalability of both my league or both my league and the partner. That's one. Second, partner convergence meet definitely helps. I think we have had, and where I would say is to what Pratima said, have the leadership of the corporate in the convergence meet. That's really helpful, because somewhere only when you touch and feel, you get to the ground. And when they also touch and feel and see the NGO partners, uh, one is the partners themselves have a lot of discussions, and also it is benefited for the corporate. The third thing is one example or something which came to our mind is enrich the partner through having people in that area meet, or in that thematic area meet. So for example, again, I'm just giving our example. One of our flagship is Chennai Kalpan League, where we do a football program. So to help the partner try to solve problems which we were not able to solve sitting together or thing, we called a football specialist team to our office. So there was one person from the NGO group, there was one umpire, there was coaches, there were partners who were doing the same thing. So we had some 10 like-minded people in the spirit of the game sit in one room and discuss. So it definitely helped the partner, and we were able to break some of the issues which we otherwise, how much ever we sat together, we couldn't. So each person gave their own point of view, and that was really helpful. I'm saying, I think that was one of the best initiatives that we have done, because we could understand from all sides, see what will work, and help the flagship go to the next level. That's so three things is partner convergence for sure. See how if you're already a vendor partner with the organization, try to see as a corporate how you can involve them into other. It'll help the growth of that organization, and it'll help your internal growth of any other initiative. And third is help the partner improvise in their knowledge to see what best can be done for your own flagship or for your own initiative and the partner.
Great points. Pratima, would you like to add?
Yeah, for the longest time, Namrata, I think I was in the third year of the partnerships, and I realized that we were working in STEM education, but different levels. One was on hands-on learning, there was teacher capacity building, there was digitization of content. And I think at the end of the third year, I actually just brought all the NGO partners together in one room. It was like a round table, and I had every partner, not just in India, I even had partners from Asia Pacific, from the philanthropy side that I was working on, to come and present what they do on the ground. And I think that was the biggest learning for me as well as for the partners, because each of the partners realized that they could collaborate with one another. And so today I have a very strong collaboration amongst my partners itself, where we have the teacher capacity building partner who is also working on digitized content, to be working with another partner who was having again a teacher build capacity building initiative in rural schools, coming together, bringing the tech together and being able to scale it up larger. The third partner was able to bring in their hands-on material and see that it reaches out to the rural areas. So while there are partners or there are organizations that work in silos, the corporate can make an effort to bring them together and actually weave a fabric that would really help to take the community development forward, right? I think the other angle is also about engaging with the community, because at the end of the day, when you're taking the intervention forward, there is a need to bring in the community to understand from them their needs, their challenges, and how you can engage them as the intervention moves forward. So we have this program that we did in Kantalur where we were looking at revitalization of millets. And there it was not just about the partner coming in and doing it. We were working with farmers, we were working with the self-help group, we were working with intergenerational people. There were indigenous, tribal, old women and men who were sharing their stories of the time when they were growing millets in Kantalur, 18 varieties at one point of time, and today where there is only 2 varieties of millets being grown, and a set of students in that particular environment who were saying that my family has been in agriculture, but I don't want to be in agriculture. I want to move out to the city. And at the end of the program, because we had brought this collective together of the people, the beneficiaries, as well as the community, we had some of these students turn around and say that we didn't realize that technology and agriculture could actually be working hand in hand. I'm a computer engineer today, but I don't think I'm going to go back to the city. I'm going to work with my family and see how I can till the land and look at bringing agriculture back for my family. I think that those are some of the things that we value the most as an organization, to be able to bring all those elements in. And as a CSR professional, I think that's the satisfaction that we all take home in terms of being able to get your partners to collaborate, in terms of bringing community together as a collective to say that they also have a say in the intervention and the development that we are doing.
Very good points. I think, something wonderful that even I'm very passionate about, like partnership and how that works. It's not just about partnering with the corporate. I feel partnerships with a corporate or under CSR also helps bring a lot of non-profits together. And and how they can leverage from each other, whether it is in terms of expertise, whether it's in terms of network, whether it's in terms of problem solving or anything. So I think very important point about partnership. And just another since we have some time, just wanted to also understand, CSR has now, and, we were talking a lot about leadership engagement, like leaders of the nonprofits should also engage with the corporate actively. And, nowadays with changes in the law and how it's become so regulated, the CSR has also become a boardroom topic for all corporates. If you would like to share with our nonprofits, any insights or anything, some of the topics that are discussed in the boardroom, what are the discussions like? Any takeaways that might be helpful for them in terms of forging better relationships with CSRs?
I can go with this one, unless Purnima, you want to go ahead, please.
No. I just wanted to check. Please go ahead, and I'll.
So I think for me, Namrata, when it comes to the board, they have their own priorities, which are business led. रेवेन्यू नहीं बनेगा तो प्रॉफिट नहीं बनेगा, प्रॉफिट नहीं बनेगा तो सीएसआर ऑब्लिगेशन नहीं बनेगा, सीएसआर ऑब्लिगेशन नहीं बनेगा तो सीएसआर बजट नहीं रहेगा, and by virtue of that the NGOs will not have the funds, right? So there's a whole train of thought behind that, and it's not like the leadership is not wanting to be on the ground to see what's happening. So there have been times when I've struggled with this, and I think I've been able to find a little bit of a leeway in that. Is I bring some of the students who have benefited from the interventions. I bring in some of the teachers. So at these board meetings, I try and bring them in so that they can talk to the leadership after putting it in a context setting. With Indian leaders, it is still okay because they would understand the culture, they would understand how things work locally. When there are international leaders who don't really know about the culture, and in those cases, it's always best to bring the community to the table so that they can express and they can talk about how the development has helped them, or how their needs have been satisfied, or if they want to look for more. So the long and short of it is, the board members really would like to know what's happening on the ground. And it's for us who drive the CSR to see what are the innovative ways in which we can share the transformation with the leadership. Another thing that I look to is always see if we can engage our leaders to volunteer with some of these organizations. It doesn't matter if it is an event based activity. Most leaders like that because it's like merged with your people engagement, and then you bring in this empathy element in where they get to see also the projects that are doing. I also look at providing them, uh, regular insights with case studies. And in some cases, some of our programs, like there's one skilling program that we have in Puducherry, where some of the graduates from the skilling program actually end up coming into our plant doing on the job training. So a lot of the leaders get to see them as well. So one is look at probably designing the program which is closely associated for the leaders to see the change that is happening in maybe whatever small numbers it can be. The second is to actually have them meet up with some of the people who have benefited from the program. And the third is to keep the communication, just as we are, why are we expecting the implementing partners to keep giving us regular information about what's happening on the program? Because that's what we customize and take to our leaders and say, this is what's happening on the ground, simply because they can't step out from the boardroom.
Thanks, Pratima, for sharing. Purnima, same question to you. Board
Yeah.
level insights. What are the kind of conversations that happen?
See, I think I'm sort of gifted to say, number one, as Pratima said, if I think the committee in essence, that a CSR committee, if you are in a public is comprises of the leadership who are really passionate about it. If that is done, all problems solved. There are multiple committees which are there in the board, and each committee has people not just namesake that they have to be in the committee. If the organization thinks from this thought process, all problems solved. So we will not be here to answer questions about, it's not something that the CSR team is reporting to them, but they'll be a part of you. I think that's very important. And I'm fortunate that I think I'm in a place where it is that way. So it's not, I do not have the pressure of reporting to them. I'll say what is done, and they're also giving their inputs. So this, I think corporates, this is more to the corporates, to committees are formed in the true essence, in that if they are led by people who are like-minded in the best interest of what the committee has to do, we will not have. One interesting thing, like what Pratima said, is CSR is something more about passion, looking at work, getting some. So if I try to make the board meeting presentations more functional by putting up videos, photos, feedback, there are numbers, there are other stuff, and there are some sign-offs that we get. But the more we make it more visual is when I think even if we have not been able to engage them through the year, that's a place where they'll be able to touch, feel it, because that's one thing. Other than in latent view, we try to have partners ensure, like Pratima said, we revolve the leadership to at least be there in most of the partner meets that happen. Or when the students come to our office, we have an office tour, we try to show them what it is. We have counseling sessions, all that we try to do it in the office. So subtly, the leadership or the board knows what's happening. They have a touch and feel there. In the board meeting, if they're not had that, we give them through videos, lot of videos, imageries, try to use data in a better way. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Purnima, for bringing that perspective. I think this is a very important point of how do you really, how can NGOs really, get the work that they're doing on ground into the boardroom. So what are the best ways to present it? I think making small videos, testimonials, case stories, and I think writing the case stories in a more effective manner and bringing it to the board is very important because it really helps people sitting in a boardroom to connect with the field? Also, what are the opportunities that can be created where they can actually visit the field if possible? If not, then what are the opportunities when employees of that particular organization actually go and engage as well? So this is another very important point. I think my last question, I think, to both of you, so I think when corporates are looking for NGO partners, now we've been able to create some, like maybe IPN and other such, platforms where, we go and we say, like, these are the NGOs, et cetera, et cetera. But if, and we talked a lot about how NGOs should look for corporates that are aligned to the same cause or strategy, and they have the similar sort of strategic alignment. One is, of course, they go to their websites and, see their CSR policy. But are there any other such spaces, social media? What are some of, those kind of platforms where they can find discovery platforms, where they can find corporates that are aligned to their cause and reach out? And what is the best way to sort of reach out? In whichever order, maybe Pratima, you can go first, and then Purnima, we can end with you.
Namrata, this is my passion statements, right? And this is something that I say and I try to be vocal about at every opportunity that I get. And look at it like this, and this is specifically for the NGOs. You have, over the last 1 decade, a lot of information out there in the public domain that can help you design how you want to do your fundraising. Take a look at the National CSR portal. If you want to approach any single corporate, you could go out there and see what has been their annual spend for the year and what has been their spend for a particular program. I don't feel that we do enough research when we are approaching a corporate donor for funding. We just see that they are in the space of education, and then we are knocking on the doors or reaching out to them and asking for information. If your proposals or if your meetings don't go forward, it's not because there is no interest. It's simply because that it doesn't complement what the organization, what the corporate is doing. When you go with your budgets or when you go with a proposal and you realize that the corporate is saying no, then you need to be in a position where you can discuss or negotiate with the corporate to say why your program is important for you. And how can you do that? You can do that only if you do the research to see where have they spent money, where is their money going into, which community development is it going. The National CSR portal is like a gem of a portal that allows you to find information about how you can reach out to donors. And then, of course, you have the websites, you have the CSR policies that are there on the websites. You have, like Namrata said, the social media posts. You have India Partner Network. This forum that we are having right now is exactly those kind of things that you're looking for. I work in a corporate, but I spend every Friday on LinkedIn to try and look and see where and what information is available. Satwa comes out with India Insights, India Data Insights. I rely heavily on that to define what my strategy might be looking like over the next 6 months or over the next 1 year. It requires a lot of research. The India CSR that you're seeing today, what you are experiencing today, is a decade-long journey that is defining how community development can work. And I am looking at the chat here and I can see one of the questions that has come up. And Namrata, I'll take a minute to address it because I know we are at the fag end of the conversation. But there is a question that says, how can we look at CSR to make systemic changes? The question I have for you is that, is the corporate donor and the implementing partner going to be the only ones who are going to make systemic changes? It's about how would you work with the government's priorities to bring out systemic changes. And that's why when I look at working around projects, I'm quite clear in my mind to say that if the implementing partner is willing to come to me and say, I want to work with the state government or I want to work with the central government in this specific area, to me, I know that there can be a drop of systemic change that I can make. Why do corporates ask for those kind of partnerships? Because there is a desire to be part of the systemic change, but that can only happen when everybody comes together to do that, right? There's also this other question about innovation. Innovation is how you sell your project to the corporate donor. If you've made the research on what the corporate wants, what their policy is, what their strategy is, and within that, if you come and say, hey, this is where I bring the innovation into place, the corporate is willing to listen to you. Also open your minds to say that there could be space where it needs to be curated, and I'm not saying customized. Customized is when the donor says, I want it in this fashion. That's customization. Curation is where you say, I think I have this problem statement and I'm looking at this community development to come and help me out so that we walk the talk together. That curation needs to be there. I would not look at customization and say that's something that brings in innovation. And I think there was one more other question.
Pratima, we'll come back to the questions. In fact, we'll open it. Just I think the last question to Purnima about the discovery platforms. Where can NGOs sort of find the best kind of corporates to partner with? And then we'll open up the floor for Q&A.
Okay. I know what I'm saying might sound as if we are making the partners go into business mode, but at the end of the day, good intent that you're also wanting to do something good for your own organization. Some forums that I can call out is where I also see partners see corporates, are forums that are hosted by bodies, like for example, NASCOM. I know the MCC hosts the annual CSR meet. So those are the forums, or I know organizations like CSR Box or consulting firms. All of you have forums which are coming out in social media like LinkedIn or something, where you get information about what's happening. Those places are great avenues for you to look into what you're doing, what can be done better, and also meet a corporate or a thing and understand what other data of, like what Pratima was saying, most data is on the web. It's a lot of data mining, understanding, figuring it out. If you are in a certain thematic area, you can just see what the corporates are, who are they aligned to your your area of interest. How do you go and reach out to them? What are the modes? Or is such more groundwork and research that you may have to do. But I think the forums, like, I'm not sure of other states how it is. I'm just taking the example. I know the MCC, the Madras Chamber of Commerce, NASCOM, ASOCHAM, all of these forums put up at least a yearly session, meet and greet, something where all these, it's a convergence of people like-minded. Last year, I also had been to one of a mega event organized by one of the consulting partners like CSR Box. It was a mega convergence of people, partners showcasing what they do. They get to meet corporates. From the sessions, they will know, like, I think this session, what IPN is doing is also great forum. So whoever have attended know Lenovo is in education. They know who, so speaking, going, trying to open the doors for more information is the best way to enrich.
Namrata, I'd also like to add to this, and Purnima, is that, some of these forums are paid forums. So an NGO partner may turn around and say, if it's a paid forum, where do and how do I do that? If you have a long-term relationship with a donor, approach the donor and say, we've worked with you for so long on this project. Let us showcase it together. And I think every corporate would be willing to do that. The other piece is NGO partners, you all have the direct connect with the state governments and the central governments. For example, when I'm working in the space of STEM education, I know my partners work with the Department of Education very closely. So there, I don't have a say. I don't get to meet them, but you as my partner could be going out and saying that this is what my donor corporate is doing in terms of taking the program forward. So there's a collaboration that happens here, a complementary relationship that can also be worked out so that you have access to the information and that is required, and forums that are required.
Thank you so much, Pratima and Purnima both. I think, this is a very interesting conversation, and before we open up the floor, just want to maybe, go over some of the main points that emerged from our discussion. I think we started with a very interesting discussion in terms of what are some of the factors. And, we started talking about the CSR law, the CSR policy, very important in terms of strategic alignment, the thematic alignment, how can geography alignment. So, looking, and then we kind of, went into details of the proposal, what are the things that a partner should keep in mind during the proposal development stage, which means, also like keeping your model, being true to your model, but also being open to that co-creation or curation, so to say, in terms of how that model will fit into what the corporate is really saying. And then once you establish that relationship, how do you sort of keep going and make it more long term by building that relationship of trust and accountability, talking about challenges as well as bringing some real life stories in terms of videos and testimonials, case studies from the field. And then we also spoke about some of the platforms, like, please keep your websites updated. I think that's something which has, been a repeated thread of our conversation. Keep your websites updated. Please keep doing more research, visiting the websites of these donors, go see their CSR page, see what are the things that they are putting out in the public domain, go see social media, be updated on LinkedIn. So I think some really important points that we've